Hello, 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 and welcome to In the Kitchen with Diabetes Canada, presented by Manulife. I'm Marilyn Smith. I'm a cookbook author, a professional home economist, and I wrote Peace, Love, and Fiber, my eighth cookbook, which is basically a love letter to your colon. I wear a lot of hats. I am the creator of the Fart Walk. Yes, I'm the Fart Walk lady. And I'm also the self-proclaimed Queen of Fiber, and I'm here to help you cook in your kitchen, make healthy, wonderful foods. And I'm being supported by one of my lovely friends and colleague, Katie Brunke, wherever you are. Take it away.
Thanks, Marilyn. Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Brunke. I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, and fellow home economist. I'm so excited to be here again for week 3. I can't wait to talk all about healthy eating on a budget, comfort classics. This is going to be a good one. Over to you, Kayla.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Marilyn and Katie. My name is Kayla Runka. I work at Diabetes Canada, and I will be your moderator. This is the third week of the 4-week series, and tonight is Comfort Classics. Each class showcases 2 delicious recipes as well as nutrition tips and information. As I posted in the chat several times already, you will receive the recording along with the recipes and nutrition resources the Monday following each class. So next Monday, you will get tonight's recording and recipes. The email will come from Diabetes Canada, and the email address is info@diabetes.ca. If you did not receive the email last week, I would encourage you to check your spam, junk archive, or promotional folders. I'm told from our digital team that we had a massive delivery and very few bounce backs, so it's somewhere. You just need to find it. We will do our best to get to all of your questions, although there are a very large number of people online with us tonight. We ask that any questions are related to food and nutrition and that you keep questions generic. We're unable to answer individual diet or diabetes management questions in this format. And for anyone who might require closed captioning, we have activated that feature for you to turn on. The sessions are being recorded and will be shared on our website and YouTube channel for on-demand viewing. However, any questions posed in the chat will be visible only to those people in attendance tonight and will not be used in the recording in any way. We ask that your comments and reactions you share be affirming and positive and to the benefit of all attendees. Diabetes Canada will not tolerate disruptive comments or behavior and will take the necessary steps to ensure that this learning space remains comfortable and safe for all. To ask a question, please post it in the chat located at the bottom of your screen. The chat icon looks like your text message button on your phone. We will not be addressing raised hands. Last but not least, events like this would not be possible without the support of our generous partner. In the Kitchen is proudly brought to you by our presenting partner, Manulife. We extend our heartfelt thanks to Manulife for their ongoing commitment to the diabetes community and their dedication to helping Canadians live longer, better, and healthier lives. All right, Marilyn,
Okay,
take it
take it away.
away.
All right, comfort food. Hello. Everybody loves comfort food. Me too. And the weather, is Toronto starting to stink. It's kind of, awful across Canada. So this is the perfect weather for comfort food. All right, so I'm going to make a roasted chicken and broccoli, and then I'm going to show you how to make a mac and cheese. So the first one is I have 4 chicken breasts, and I've cut them into smaller pieces so I don't have to do that when it's cooked. I like to do that before I pop it into the oven. And it calls for a teaspoon of Cajun spice. Okay, so you can buy Cajun spice already as is, but a lot of people go, well, I don't like Cajun spice, or I don't know what Cajun spice is. And basically, it's a combination of cayenne, garlic, a little bit of chili. So you could make your own if you wanted, but I really like it. I think it really adds a lot of zippity doo-dah. And instead of just shaking it randomly onto the chicken, I like to measure it out as a teaspoon, and then everybody's going to get about the same amount. I'm telling you, it's not spicy. It's not going to blow your head off. It's just going to add what I like to call zippity doo-dah. So we're going to add the chicken and the zippity doo-dah. And that's going to go into the oven. And then along beside it, I have how many, just as a, hearts or whatever. How many people have actually baked or roasted broccoli? This is not baking, it's roasting. Put a little heart up. Okay, a lot of you have. Never. Oh my God, then this is going to be a life altering experience, because what happens when you roast vegetables, they actually become quite a lot sweeter, and they're not anything like as if when you steam them. I'm seeing a ton of people that are doing it. I'm just going to drizzle about, it's a half a tablespoon of the broccoli, of the some oil onto the broccoli, and I'm just drizzling it onto the florets, and I'm going to pop it into the oven at the same time as the chicken. So there they are, and I like to lay them down where I've cut them, so there's like a flat surface that they're sitting right onto the lined parchment paper pan. So that's going into the oven. I'm going to time it for about 25 minutes, and we're always cooking it to an internal temperature. And for chicken, it's 165. So where we go, there we go for 20. Okay, just a couple of tips on budget friendly. This is a broccoli stalk. Now it says in the recipe 4 large crowns. Sometimes they're not very big, so that's okay. It's about a pound of broccoli is going to serve 4 people. And what I like to do is cut it about there. And then because I don't waste anything if I can help it, I'm going to cut off the outside portion because that is so tough. Basically, you could break a tooth. So I'm going to shave that off or cut it off. And then I stick it in the fridge in a little bag or into a container. And this becomes a crudité for raw vegetables. And it is fantastic. I don't save it for soup because I find that it's too strong a flavor to add to just a vegetable soup. Those stalks. If I was going to add broccoli, I would add the more tender parts. Okay, so there's my broccoli chip. And
Marilyn, a
now,
quick question.
yes.
Can you use frozen broccoli instead of the fresh broccoli?
Okay, yes, you can, but it's a whole different technique. So if you can't roast frozen broccoli unless you superheat the pan. So you would have put the pan in the oven, let it get really, really, really hot at the 400 degrees, and then pop in the frozen and put the oil on it. And it's not going to be the same. It's going to be a lot softer. But if you don't like tender, crisp vegetables, if you like them a little more on the soft side, it'll work. But I would prefer that you use fresh broccoli in this recipe, although you can use frozen vegetables in another one of the recipes. Okay, let's get started on the mac and cheese. Katie, do you want to talk a little bit about how why we all want you to eat so much darn broccoli? Because it's one of my favorite vegetables to eat on a regular basis, and it's pretty economical. So do you want to just talk about why broccoli is so wonderful?
Yeah, so broccoli is pretty much available year round, I would say.
Right?
It is so full of nutrition. It's called a cruciferous vegetable. Those are part of the sulfur containing vegetables. They are very, very good for our health. They're full of antioxidants, which we know are great for helping to protect our cells and maintain our health overall. I love that tip you have with using the broccoli stems because I do that as well. So my little tip is to save those, and I kind of do a little dice with them as well, and then I'll throw them in a like an omelet or a stir fry, and it's a good way to use those up. You can
Oh,
freeze them too, and I find you can just pop those into a stir fry really quickly, and it's good to go. Nice way to use up some bits and bobs.
I love
Sweet.
bits and bobs. I make a
Yes.
soup once a week called "Clean My Vegetable Drawer Out" soup, and that's like the
Yeah.
bits and bobs too. So right. Okay, now
Yeah.
let's get
That's
on to
actually,
this.
I
Sorry.
was going to say, Marilyn, that's one of my tips too for like helping to prevent food waste and save money is every week just making an effort to do a meal where you're throwing in your bits and bobs, whether it's a bit of protein that you have left over or vegetables. Could be an omelet, could be a pasta, could be a soup. That helps clear your fridge out, make room for new stuff, and save you some money.
I love it. I do a frittata like that as well. Okay, so now this is like a home ec class right now because we're gonna make a roux. We're gonna make a cheese sauce. Okay, so a roux. So we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of oil to kind of a medium-sized saucepan, and then I'm going to saute some garlic, and there's 3 cloves of garlic, and I have a cup of onion that's diced. And one of the reasons why this is an important step, and that I don't want you to skip it out, is that when you're sautéing, you're actually developing flavors as opposed to just putting something raw in. So we're getting that flavor in developing. The sweetness comes out in the vegetables too. And if you don't like raw garlic or raw onions, this actually makes it sweeter and easier to go with. but we're going to put the pasta on at the same time. So I'm kind of like, I feel like na 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 na. So I have a pot of water on, and I'm going to add the pasta. Now, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people cook pasta in little tiny pots, and you need the water to be going and the pasta to be boiling around in it. If you don't, you actually wreck the pasta. So where is the pasta? I had it 2 seconds ago. There it is. Okay. So, and I know you're all saying, what? I can have pasta? So this is pasta that's going right into the water's boiling. Make sure the water is really, really boiling. And then you're going to add the pasta all at once. You saw how it's just like about 1.75 cups. And you really want this to be boiling a lot. And when the water comes back to a boil, you're going to start to time it. But the trick in this recipe, because we want you to be eating more vegetables all the time, is to add cauliflower at the same time. And people are going, yes, we're adding cauliflower at the same time. And what happens? Well, what happens basically is we're adding more fiber to the pasta. But this pasta, and let's have a little drum roll for the pasta, is called, now it's not that we don't, this is just, it's called smart macaroni, but it's white pasta with added fiber. So you're actually getting the texture of white pasta. Now at my house, hang on, this is cooking too fast. At my house, I use whole wheat pasta or whole grain pasta. It takes a little longer to cook. This should take timer on for about 5 minutes when this starts, 5 or 6 minutes. But the trick is we want to cook it al dente. And the reason we want to cook it al dente is when you cook the living heck out of it, you convert it into simple sugars, and you're going to raise the glycemic index. Do you want to talk about that, Katie, while I'm beginning,
Absolutely.
when I'm mixing everything up here? Okay, go for it.
So I think there's a lot of confusion about pasta. I hear all the time, I can't eat pasta. I'm not supposed to have this. It's not good for me. You can absolutely have pasta. You can have pasta, cook it al dente. That means that there's still a little bit of a bite to it. There's some texture. It's not, as Marilyn would say, cooked to death. When it is cooked al dente, it's actually considered low on the glycemic index. There's also so many noodles out there, like the one that Marilyn showed, the smart version that has added fiber. If you don't mind the whole grain, that's going to be one of the best choices and probably one of the most economical. There are some fancier versions also out there. Things like legume-based pasta, so chickpea or lentil, they tend to be a little bit more expensive, but they are very high in fiber, very low on the glycemic index, as well as higher in protein. So if you want to experiment with that as well, I would definitely encourage doing so. And portions matter. So quarter of your plate as your starch food helps to balance out your meal. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to add, so when the onion and the garlic is like kind of a golden color, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour to make the roux. I'm also adding a little bit of dried mustard, and dried mustard just comes in a jar, or you can get it at the bulk store, and it kind of adds a bit more of a flavor. If you don't have any dried mustard, you could use like a Dijon, because you want a stronger flavor of mustard. And you want to make sure that the onions and the garlic and everything is coated with the flour, so it should look something like that. And then there's some salt and pepper, and I love adding freshly ground pepper because I think it's one of the easiest ways to add a big bang of flavor. Hang on, I want to just make sure. Now, you don't stir your pasta all the time, but when it starts to boil, you're going to give it a little stir to make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom. And then we're going to slowly whisk in the milk. Now I have this at a pretty low temperature, and this is 1.5 cups of milk. And this is the technique. And when I was a home ec teacher, this was one of the things we taught everybody, and I don't think it was in grade 8. And so basically, if you dump all the milk in at once, you're not allowing the flour to absorb it, and it's going to be lumpy. So this way, it's kind of how you make gravy too. If you added flour to your fat, and then you slowly add, stock or broth, then you're going to get a beautiful smooth and velvety sauce. So once it starts to go, you can add the milk a little faster, and we're going to whisk it up until it thickens. Okay, now okay, what's happening? There's the timer set. Oh, I didn't set it. Okay. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now on the package of my pasta, it says cooks in 6 minutes, but here's my big tip. So that's for al dente, but I'm going to put it into the cheese sauce. And so it's going to cook a little bit more. And so what I want to do is take it out at 5 minutes. And at 5 minutes, then the pasta is even a little bit more undercooked. And then it's going to finish off in the sauce. Many, many years ago, I went to Italy on a media trip, and the dietitian said, she's like, okay, now we're going to talk about the pasta, and the pasta has a low glycemic index. And I put my hand up, I said, excuse me, Marilyn Smith, professional home economist from Canada, you're wrong. And she said, no, you are wrong, and I'm going to explain why. And then she explained what Katie talked about is that when we undercook it, then we don't actually raise up the glycemic index. And that's the whole trick. And the other whole trick about when you cook the pasta is what I learned when I went to the cooking school was to undercook it, and then you finish it off for that other maybe 30 seconds or so into the sauce. So always undercook it. And the other wonderful tip, and it's right in the recipe, is that we're going to take a 1/4 cup of the water, the pasta water. And so if the sauce turns out to be too thick, then what we're going to do is thin it out with some of the pasta water. So we're getting some flavor. Now, I don't salt my pasta water, and I know you should, but I'm a really big fan of under salting, and so I don't want to start off with salty pasta. I'd rather salt my pasta if I need to, but I added salt to the cheese sauce. And so basically this cauliflower macaroni is basically a cheese sauce with cauliflower in, as opposed to, I mean, I think people are going, well, I don't like cauliflower. Well, do you like cauliflower with cheese sauce? Because if you do, you're going to love this. All right, so this is almost thick. I'm still whisking. Are there any questions, Kayla, about cooking things?
Sorry, I was on mute. There's a few questions about whether gluten-free pasta could be used in place of the regular pasta that's being used. I would assume the answer to that is a resounding yes. Just watch the cook time.
Well, actually, the gluten-free pasta, because it's different ingredients, it doesn't have the same amount of fiber. So I would be really making sure that I was adding, more vegetables, because I would really be very concerned about making sure that I had the fiber with the pasta. Because Katie, talk about why it's important. Like, why are we adding the macaroni? Why are we adding the cauliflower with the macaroni?
We're adding those vegetables to balance out the meal. So when we're adding half of our plate as non-starchy vegetables, not only does that help us to keep full, it also ensures that we're getting enough vegetables in the day, which is about 7 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables. So by doing this, you're kind of bulking up the pasta with non-starchy vegetables. This is a great way to add fiber. It's a great way to, it kind of like in a way tricks your senses, thinking that you're having this, big kind of portion or moderate portion of pasta, but really a good chunk of it's vegetables. You can also do that with things like a zucchini too. If you're having more of a spaghetti style dish, you can add in spiralized zucchini noodles, and that bulks it up too. So you feel like you're getting a comforting bowl of noodles with lots of veggies.
Okay, and back to saving some money. So I just use the florets in the cauliflower, and those stalks. Now I make that end of the week soup, or if I save this up in my freezer, then I can make a stock with like if I had some soup bones or whatever, then that would go into my stock, or I could just use these as crudité. But I don't throw them out. Another little tip is that this calls for a cup of grated cheese. And so the bigger the package, the less inexpensive it is, the less expensive it is rather. And so when I bought the cheese, like it was the great big package. It was the great big one because it was quite a lot cheaper than the whole one. And so I stored it by putting it back into the package, and then I wrap it up in parchment paper so that I can let it breathe, and I keep it in the coldest place of my fridge. But another little tip that you could use if you're not going to go through the cheese that quickly is to grate it up for this recipe. So there's an extra 1 cup of cheese with there's a 1/4 cup of parm in there. So the next time I want to go make this cauliflower macaroni and cheese, then I've already got the cheese ready in the freezer. And so I'm going to save money that way, but I'm also going to save some time in the kitchen. All right, so now my cheese sauce is thick and bubbling, and when that, it feels like a cauldron. Can you see the steam? 4 drops of the essence of cheddar. So now what's happened is that the flour has thickened all the way through, and we're almost at time for the pasta. Let's just try a little bit to make sure
Can
that
I ask
it's
you a quick
al
question
dente.
about the timing of the pasta? Someone has asked a great question. Does the 6-minute timing start, once the water comes back to the boil, or as soon as you add it into the boiling water?
It starts as soon as it starts to boil. That was a great question. And so don't start it when it's just sitting there coming back to the boil. All right. So now I've turned my sauce down. I'm going to strain this out and I'll be right back. Now, if you want, oh, I forgot to save the 1/4 cup, and that's just in time. Holy smokes. Okay. And I
I'm
just
going to
spilt
ask a question
something.
while you're doing that. Someone is
Yep.
asking if there's alternatives to flour to thicken that sauce. I'm assuming perhaps they're gluten-free, maybe.
Cornstarch.
Okay.
Cornstarch would have been your gluten-free choice.
Okay.
So that would have been a great one. Yes.
Yeah.
And hang on, I'm going to add this right now. The pasta and the cauliflower goes into this pot. Oh, I forgot to put the cheese in. So there's a cup. And I used really old cheddar, and also I'm lactose intolerant. So you can buy you can buy lactose-free cheese. And it also calls for parm, but Grana Padano is also lactose-free. So if you ever wanted to, if you're worried because you are a lactose intolerant, then you could use those 2 cheeses, and you could use lactose-free milk as well, which I did. Okay, yes. Sorry, was there another question that I cut you off with?
There's a number of different questions in terms of, are there other cheeses you could use in the sauce other than cheddar? Are there other vegetables you could use instead of cauliflower?
So you could go with more broccoli, although then you'd have double broccoli. And I think the reason that the culinary dietitian picked cauliflower was because it's white and it's not like, whoa. So you could put any vegetable in there that you wanted to. Zucchini would have been okay. If you wanted to put broccoli in there instead of the cauliflower, then I would have roasted mushrooms and maybe peppers. So I had some color on the plate. But you could totally mix up the vegetables. I think the big tip is that you want to add a vegetable to the pasta so that, and just look at this, like, come off it. That is that's a yum fest. Okay.
Looks
So I don't
delicious. And
need to add.
I'm gonna drop this question because I know you did this by accident because we talked about it. Someone's asking, many people are asking if you can use plant-based milks like almond milk instead, but also can you use the higher protein milk, which I know you tried.
I did. I tried it with the higher protein milk and it was fantastic. It's actually was a bit more creamy than the version. So I made it a couple times. I made it with skim milk. I didn't like it. The 1% Kayla worked with that on with the 1%, and it's fantastic. This is macaroni and cheese. You're gonna go, I'm in heaven. And to divide this in a quarter, it's over a cup. And I just want you to see what this plate looks like. Now, all the other different cheeses. You can use whatever cheese you want, but it needs a strong cheese. Like if you put in like a mild cheddar, you're not going to taste it because most macaroni and cheeses have like, gobs and gobs of cheese. So because there's only a cup, you want to make sure that you're choosing a very strong flavored cheese. And look at that plate. Look at that. The chicken is I already cooked one. It's got that beautiful Cajun spice on it. There's our roasted broccoli. You see that it's got some color, it's quite pretty. And then this mound of macaroni. If that doesn't say a hug on a plate, I don't know what does. So there you go. Oh my gosh, I want to eat this right now. All right. Okay. Are there any other questions before I start clearing up this
No,
one?
why don't you do that? Because we're at time, but I can
Okay.
maybe jump to asking Katie some questions.
Perfect.
Including one, someone has said that they're wondering if carbs made up half that plate. And so maybe just want to review the balanced plate method
For sure.
because I think the carbs were definitely only a quarter of that plate, but
Yeah, I think it was kind of hard to tell because the cauliflower blended so nicely with the pasta that it looked like it was representing half the plate. But in actuality, there was a lot of cauliflower there, as well as the broccoli, which would represent about 50% of the meal. So that would achieve our goal of half non-starchy vegetables, quarter of our carbohydrate foods being the noodles, and then the other quarter is our protein. It just, yeah, it blended so well. It was kind of hard to tell.
perfect. That's great. I've actually tried this mac and cheese. It is delicious.
It's
I was gonna say
delicious.
something about the high protein milk too. Just from a budget perspective, it definitely is more expensive. So if you can afford it, it's a great way to add more protein to your meal if that's something you're looking to achieve. If not, it's absolutely fine to use any kind of like milk that you can afford. Somebody mentioned that it's the high protein milk is similar to homogenized. I think that depends on the milk fat percentage. It definitely has more protein in it than um, like regular style milk. So yeah, if budget allows, it's definitely a good idea.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have all different kinds of milk in my fridge. I have skim, I have 1%, and then I have the high protein. So I kind of mix them up depending on where I want it. So if I want a high protein, more on my cereal, then I use the high protein milk. For the sauce, because I don't need any more protein because we're having chicken, then I'm going to put the regular milk into this. So it's just really, I mean, I think you can balance it out in your own eating ways. Okay. Yes. All right.
That's
Go on.
great.
Sorry, I'm still organizing things.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I have one more question for Katie too. So when we think about comfort foods, oftentimes people associate comfort with eating when you're maybe stressed or when you're happy or when you're sad. So do you want to talk a little bit about mindful eating? We talk about that a lot and maybe how that might apply, to everyone, but also for people who are living with diabetes.
For sure. So there really is no good or bad foods. Food is food. There's certainly more nutritious foods and more indulgent ones. And I think if we're aiming, to eat a balanced diet, choosing the more nutritious foods daily and the majority of the time is where we're going to achieve those blood sugar goals and health goals. It's absolutely fine to have indulgent foods like once in a while, but you do want to be mindful. So mindful eating really is about taking the time to check in with yourself. We eat with our head, our heart, and our stomach. And sometimes we eat when we're not actually hungry. So, taking that moment before you eat to just do a little bit of a self check in, see how hungry you are, portioning out what you think makes sense for you based on your hunger level and trying to achieve a balanced meal. And then really trying to enjoy that. So, savor the flavors, the smells, the textures. You're going to enjoy the food to a higher degree if you're spending time slowly eating it. When you're eating mindfully, you're also chewing more slowly, and that helps your digestion. So it's good to try and if you're going to have these foods, we do want you to enjoy them, but take the time to do a bit of a check in with yourself and be in an environment where you're not distracted. When we're watching TV, when we're scrolling on our phones, it's really easy to overeat. And it actually takes about 20 minutes for our stomach to communicate with our brain that we're full. So if we're a fast eater and distracted at the same time, it's really easy to overeat versus taking that time to set a nice table for yourself, really enjoy your meal, and focus in on that.
So you brought up a really interesting point, Katie. My husband and I, we were in Newfoundland in St. John's. We went to Mallard Cottage, and the dinner was very expensive. And my husband was wolfing it down. I went, stop, slow down, because this costs $65, and if you eat it in 5 minutes, I'm going to kill you. So anyway, that was the beginning of him starting to slow down in his eating, and he has said he has less gas. He's enjoying his food more. And we always sit down and eat dinner together. And that's one of the best ways, if you can, to eat with somebody and not watch TV or play on your phone. Like there's a no phone rule at my house at the table. If you have a phone, you're I'm going to kick you out. Anyway, okay, so let's get on with the next one. Okay, shepherd's pie. Come on. Who doesn't love shepherd's pie? I love shepherd's pie. And I love this spin on shepherd's pie. And so let's start. I'm going to kind of go back and forth while things are cooking because I can't cook it all in real time and then show you what it's going to look like at the end. So the first one is that we're going to cook up some onions. Everybody close their eyes just for a couple of minutes. And I'll just put my back to you. And oh, look, the onions are already cooked. Okay, so, oh, and I did this out of order. So I was so excited to do that stupid joke that I blew it. Okay, so the first thing, the first thing you want to do, so let's just push the onions out of the way. I love the Indian spice in this recipe. I love South Asian food. And I was really happy that the culinary dietitian who created these recipes used so much Asian spice. Hang on, and that's my phone that just said that the chicken is done. Yes, it is. Okay, so I'm just going to take this out of the oven for 2 secs. If I can just find my oven mitts. Anyway, so I'm going to add to this, to my great big skillet, I'm going to add some oil, and then I'm going to add, yeah, so that looks fantastic. So that was cooking in real time. The chicken that I plated, I cooked just before the class started. Okay, back to this pan. So it calls for a tablespoon of oil, and then we're going to add some, here we go, some cumin seed. And we've used ground cumin, but this is actually the seed. And we're going to toast it into the oil, and it's going to make kind of a popping noise, almost like popcorn. And when that happens, we're adding that level of flavor. And what happens is that it doesn't taste like ground, it tastes like toasted ground. It's really a neat trick. And a lot of whole spices, you do that in the frying pan. Sometimes you dry toast them, but quite often you do it in oil. And then you add the onion, and you're going to cook all of that. And the onion needs to cook for about 3 to 5 minutes because you want to make it soft. The whole idea when you're putting a shepherd's pie in is that basically almost everything's cooked. It's just going in the oven to kind of marry itself, can kind of meld all the flavors together. And then, so there's 3 cloves of garlic that I'm going to put in with the onion. You know, I can't say enough about onions and garlic. They are 2 of my favorite ingredients. Pretty much the only thing I don't put onions and garlic in is baking. But they really add a wonderful flavor. And you could use garlic powder instead of fresh garlic if you wanted to. But there's so many different kinds of garlic powder. There's granulated, there's really fine. You're going to have to experiment to see which is stronger for you. The rule of thumb is about a 1/4 teaspoon per garlic clove. I think that's way off. I use about a half to almost a whole teaspoon because I really like the flavor of garlic. So we're going to add that into there. And then we're going to add a tablespoon of grated ginger or finely diced ginger. And I've got a tablespoon of coriander, which is another wonderful South Asian flavor spice. And a teaspoon of garam masala is going in there as well. Remember, we talked about how to keep spices. We want to keep them in a glass jar. And depending on the size of the jar is how much you're going to be using it. As you can see, I use a lot of garam masala. I don't use as much coriander, so I have a smaller jar. Okay, we want to stir that into the fat to get those flavors all kind of toasted in the oil. And then in not real time, we're going to add 1.5 pounds of ground beef. Now, I already cooked the ground beef because it takes about 8 minutes to cook it, and that was just way too long to watch me stir something. So I've already cooked the 1.5 extra lean ground beef, and I drained it already. Now, if you wanted to do this, say you were having, I don't know, company over the next couple of days, and you wanted to prep, so you could kind of do your own sort of sous chef stuff and do what I did, where you cook the meat in advance. You could even cook the meat and then freeze it. And then when you wanted to make this, that would take off a good like 10 minutes of cooking time. So that's always helpful. I like to buy, yes.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
I'm assuming that ground turkey or ground chicken can be used. There's lots of chatter.
No,
okay.
Perfect.
And do you want to talk?
Vegetarian?
Do you want to talk? Yeah, you could use ground soy too. Do you want to talk a little bit about the difference between extra lean, and regular ground beef? Because I know there can be a cost difference between them. And I think I know from
Sorry.
previous history that, if you have lean or regular ground beef, cooking it up and draining off the fat can actually make it pretty consistent with the more expensive leaner cuts as well, if budget is a concern.
That's a great question and a great solution. So the medium ground is going to be less expensive than the extra lean. So I've got a piece of hair in my eye. Of course I do. So if I was going to use the medium versus the extra lean, then I would cook that beef separately. I wouldn't cook it with all this because when I drained it off, I'd be draining off too much flavor. So I would cook that meat separately, drain it. You could even pat it with a paper towel and then put it into the pan with all the spices. You're going to save a lot of money. But another way that you can even save more money is if, okay, so you could use ground turkey or ground chicken as well. But if you use, instead of, we're going to add lentils to this, instead of adding 1 can of lentils, which we're going to do in a second, you use 3 cans. So the 3 cans of lentils would be equivalent to the amount of protein, and it would be more economical, way more fiber. And when I make my own shepherd's pie, I very often just do straight up lentils. I'm a huge fan of lentils. Hang on, I will put on my Queen of Fiber tiara. And so the Queen of Fiber says that lentils are so very good for all of you. They have B vitamins, lots of fiber, and for most people, they don't make you fart as often as regular beans. So start off with lentils, and your body will go, "Oh, this is quite fun," as opposed to starting off with black beans, and you go, "What is going on?" So yes, anyway. Yeah, so I find that lentils are just a wonderful thing to add. All right, so my meat is all cooked up. This is so out of order. I got to put the topping on in a second. All right, and now I'm going to talk about sweet potatoes too. Okay, so the next ingredients is a combination. We're going to make the sauce right in the pan, and very much the way we did the sauce, the roux for the macaroni and cheese, we're making a cornstarch sauce, which is the gluten-free version. So this recipe is gluten-free. The macaroni and cheese could have been gluten-free if we had used if I had used cornstarch. So I'm going to add the cornstarch right to the beef stock. Now, if I was going to do the vegetarian version, obviously I'd use vegetable stock or broth. There's Worcester. Now, you wouldn't use that if you're vegetarian because there's fish in it. You could use soy sauce. And there's 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Now, I just want to talk briefly about tomato paste and money as I whisk this up. So tomato paste is really economical if you buy the brand of the store. I got this at Freshco, so that's compliments. But if you waste this tomato paste, then you're not saving any money. And I really like these tubes, but the tubes are more expensive. I think this worked out to be quite a lot more than per serving. But the cool thing about this is that as long as you use it within, most of them say 14 days, then you might not be wasting it. But what I do is that what I don't finish using from the tomato paste, I freeze it in an ice cube tray. And then I'm going to pop those out and put them into a bag. And then whenever I need 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, I have it in my freezer. So that's one of my big tips for that. All right, so now I'm just going to whisk up the cornstarch, the tomato paste, and the sauce and the Worcester all into that. And then I'm going to add my lentils.
Katie, I'm going to ask you a
And
quick question while Marilyn's just stirring her broth there.
Mhm.
Some people wondering, the difference between fresh and frozen vegetables and, are they interchangeable and is there anything to watch out for?
Yeah, so I would say from a budget perspective, frozen's always going to be a bit more budget friendly. In terms of the quality, they're very high quality, very nutritious. They're picked at peak season, they're flash frozen. So it's still like as nutritious as fresh. If you're trying to save money and you're thinking about, do I buy fresh or frozen? I would say buy seasonal vegetables fresh because you're going to get the nicest flavor, and then other vegetables that aren't in season, consider frozen. It's a great way to save money. It's a great way to reduce food waste as well, because if you don't eat up everything you bought, and vegetables don't last forever in the fridge, then you've got a second chance if they're frozen. So I like to have a bit of a combination on hand, so that I can mix and match depending on what I'm making.
I'm with you. Well, Katie and I are basically twins, except she's quite a lot taller than me. Anyway, um, so anyway, okay, the recipe calls for cauliflower. It calls for 4 cups. So what happens if you're not making the macaroni and cheese and this at the same time? Because if you used half a cauliflower, you probably got an extra 4 cups in your fridge. So I would totally use that. But if you're making it in a week when you don't have cauliflower, I always have frozen vegetables in my freezer because you've always got a vegetable. So I got this, I can't even remember, but I measured it out in the package. So that's 4 cups of cauliflower. And then there's a cup of mixed vegetables. So this has got green beans and carrots and a little bit, a teeny bit of corn and a little bit of peas. And it adds a wonderful color. So we're going to mix that in there. And the first time I made this, I tried all the recipes out, so that I'd know what I was doing. And I thought I would never put cauliflower in a shepherd's pie. And now I will never not put cauliflower in a shepherd's pie. It adds some moisture, it added flavor, it bulks it up. You got to see the serving size on this one. And literally it's because there's so many vegetables and the cauliflower takes up a lot of space, but it absorbs all the flavors. So it takes on all the flavors, which is wonderful. And then the last ingredient in this is a 1/4 cup of parsley. I really like parsley, so I'm making it a 1/2 cup. And we talked about what to do with the leftover parsley from last week. That was the leftover parsley I had from last week. So I had a 1/2 cup left and I thought, I'm just using this. So in it goes and mix that all up. Now you would cook this for a little bit longer on the stove just to kind of get the cauliflower a little bit cooked, but it's going into the oven for quite a while. So I'm just going to turn this off and I'll get to the back because I want to talk about sweet potatoes. Now, I have not made a shepherd's pie without sweet potato topping in forever. I am a huge fan of sweet potatoes. Now, I usually use the peel, but this recipe, we're going to peel it. So you have 2 options. You could cook these in the microwave and then scrape out and then toast the peel in the oven, which is always fun, or you can just peel them. And so I followed the recipe and I just peeled them. And it's about 2. Now, I just wanted to show you these 2 because when you buy sweet potatoes, it's kind of a good idea to try to get them all the same size. So, buying this one and that one is like, well, what is that? Anyway, so I just wanted to show you what not to do. And so I would be buying more that look like this or something that was easy to peel. Okay. So, don't go willy-nilly. I see people buying stuff and I go, are you even thinking? I don't think so. Anyway, so I peeled it. There's 3 cups of sweet potatoes in this pot. And then we're going to mash it up with my mom's potato masher. And we're going to add some garlic powder. Now, you could add fresh garlic. No, is it garlic? Yeah. You could add fresh garlic if you wanted to, but then it's not really going to get cooked. And so I like that we're using the garlic powder in this. And then there's a little bit of iodized salt and a little bit of pepper. And you're just going to smash all that up together. And
Marilyn,
then
while you're smashing that sweet potato up, Katie, do you maybe want to talk about the difference between sweet potato and regular potato in terms of, glycemic response and all that good stuff?
For sure. So I think so many people are shocked to find out that sweet potato is actually low on the glycemic index, despite its name of being sweet. So it has it has a different glycemic response. It releases more slowly into the bloodstream the carbohydrates, which doesn't spike your blood sugar to the same degree. I'm like Marilyn, I try and keep the skin on because that's fiber you're throwing away if you're not using it. But I understand not everybody's into the skin. When it comes to potatoes, there's something kind of neat about potatoes. Technically, when they are cooked and you're eating them hot, they are considered a high glycemic food, meaning that the starches are going to release more quickly into the bloodstream and it's going to increase your blood sugar more rapidly depending on what you're mixing in with your meal. However, when potatoes are cooked and then cooled and either eaten cooled or reheated, those starches change their configuration and they actually turn into something called resistant starches. Resistant starches are really good for our gut bacteria. It's like a prebiotic for our gut, and it also lowers the glycemic index. So, a potato that has been cooked and cooled and then either eaten cooled or reheated is considered more moderate on the glycemic index. So, it goes down a step. So, that's something you can also do with pasta. That's something you can do with rice. And I just learned from Marilyn a few weeks back that sticking your loaf of bread in the freezer causes resistant starches as well. So the more that we can increase these in our diet, the better it is going to be for our gut health and our blood sugars.
Which is why in Peace, Love, and Fiber, which is diabetes friendly, the only potato recipes I have are potato salads. So there's a curried chickpea potato salad, and there's another one that I can't find. But anyway,
While you're
so
holding
I've
that
been
book,
doing that.
while you're
Yes.
holding the book, a reminder to everyone, we will be drawing random for 10 attendees tonight to win one of Marilyn's Peace, Love, and Fiber cookbooks signed by her. We had some questions in the chat about how do we know who won. Because of privacy issues, we contact those people whose names have been drawn. So if you are chosen as one of the winners each week to win a cookbook, you will get an email from me from my diabetes.ca email address, and I will be asking for your mailing address to ship that out. So that is a legit email. If you see something in your inbox from me asking for your address, it means you've won one of those cookbooks.
So thank you. I'm so excited about people winning my book. Yeah, so I have a Pyrex dish that I've had longer than two of my ex-husbands anyway. And I just put the wet parchment paper in it because I hate washing dishes, even though let's be honest, my husband actually washes the dishes. Yeah. I've been promising I'm going to give him $1 million, but I'm lying. Anyway, so
Wait, now you have to explain about the wet parchment paper. I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah, no, I used it last week too. So so you saw that I put the sweet potatoes evenly onto the top. This weighs 1,000 pounds, so it just tells you how big the portion's going to be. And if I were you, like it says, it serves 6, but I'm telling you, it's so delicious. I would make 2 of them and eat them all week. Anyway, okay, that's going to go into the oven. So parchment paper, and I'll show you I will show you the final. So you just tear a piece of parchment paper off. Now, sadly, you can't compost the white ones, but you can compost the natural. But I got that on sale, and I'm going to use it up before I go. And then you run it under water. You scrunch it all up. You can probably hear me scrunching it. And then you see it becomes pliable, malleable. And when you go to put it into a pan, it now shapes into that size. And so, when you're putting something into a pan, I don't do this with cakes. I only do this with wet ingredients or when I'm roasting. So as I put it into the pan, like it doesn't fly up and crunch and make me nuts. And so, yeah, so it just sort of fits in really, really well. It's a little trick I started doing millions of years ago. I see other people, trying to scrunch it up when it's anyway. Okay, here's what this is your serving. This is your portion. So this is what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. You've got to let it set for about 10 minutes before you slice it up. It is so delicious. Now, if you're not used to South Asian spices, they're very mild. It's just really wonderful and warming. But if you wanted, you could make it Tex-Mex, and you could just switch out the cumin and the coriander and the garam masala and use like smoked paprika or chili powder and make it more of a Tex-Mex. But you wouldn't change anything else. So my mouth is watering. This is one of my favorite comfort foods, this and pea soup. Anyway, so yeah, so oh my gosh, I really need to post the picture of my kitchen after this because it's a mess. It is a complete freaking mess. Yeah, and I've always sort of complimented myself on cleaning up as I go. Well, there's no way in God's earth that would have happened today. And I forgot to time I got to time this. Okay, so how long does it cook for? That's a great question, Marilyn. What's the answer? The answer is 20 to 25 minutes. I usually cook it for the 25. All right. What time is it? Oh, are we right on time?
are right on time. And so maybe as I remind everybody that they will get the recording from tonight along with the recipes, including the bonus recipe and a nutrition resource on healthy eating on a budget. You will get the email on Monday after this class, next Monday. And please click. So the bonus recipe is included as a link as its own in the email, but you need to click on the main link where the recording, the recipes, and the resource are all housed on one page. So make sure you're click crazy on that email and open everything that you possibly can to get to everything. It's all there, I promise. And we will draw 10 names randomly. And if you receive an email from me, Kayla Runka at diabetes.ca, it means I'm asking for your address to ship you your book. So can you both maybe give your takes on dispelling the myth that healthy eating means it's more expensive?
Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
I'm chewing. You answer.
Okay, I'll go. So I've actually been running a healthy cookie on a budget program for the past 7 years, and Marilyn joined me about 4 years ago. So we talk about this a lot. There is a myth that eating healthy is expensive, and I think if you're buying pre-made stuff that's been already chopped up, or meal kits, or fancy things from health food stores, and perhaps that bill gets really high. But if you're willing to do the work, if you cook from scratch, you buy vegetables, prep them yourself, if you're looking at sales, planning accordingly, if you're shopping your fridge, freezer, and pantry first and actually knowing what you have, and then building your weekly list around that and sales, you're going to save a lot of money. And you'd be
Yeah.
surprised. There's different strategies. And I think one of the biggest takeaways is eat lots of beans and legumes, eat lots of whole grains, frozen vegetables for the win. It is entirely possible to eat well on a limited budget. Most of the clients I work with have a very, very tight budget and do pretty well considering. So it is possible.
Yeah. So Katie, well, come on, we work together. So of course we're on the same page, but that whole thing about, shop your fridge, your freezer, and your pantry, has been a game changer because most people throw 40% of their food away. And so by not wasting your food, you automatically are saving 40%. That's a ton of money. And I really started doing this a lot. Using the hashtag waste not want not, where I would, make stuff out of my fridge. So I would pretend I was on a chef's black box competition. And it's like, all right, Marilyn, you've got to make dinner with cauliflower, one egg and a head of and a head of cabbage. It's like, what am I going to make? And so becoming creative. But the way that you can pull that off is if you have a stable of recipes. So learning these techniques, like what we're teaching you in these last 3 weeks, or your favorite recipes, so you have those in your head. Then you can kind of create different things out of your fridge. I still had tomatoes and cucumbers left from last week when I did that salad. And so the other night we had like a salad made with that. And except I added some white beans, I added some feta, which I had in the fridge. I added a little bit of kale that I had in the fridge. So creating salads and soups and what Katie was saying, frittatas and omelets and all that kind of stuff, and being creative is going to save you money as well. Yeah, but that's my biggest tip. Shop your fridge, freezer, and pantry, and make that list up based on, and then look at your sales and buy in bulk if you can, but freeze in smaller portions. If you put the extra work in your meal plan, you can actually pull things off. It's the people that are going like, I don't know what to make. And so you overbuy and then you end up throwing stuff away. So actually meal plan. I know it sounds boring, but I mean, I think it's fun, but once again, I do this for a living. And for $5,000, I'll come shopping with you. How about that? I'll look in your fridge. I'll help you.
Careful what you offer up there, Marilyn. There's a couple thousand people on
Okay.
this call.
Well, I thought if I price pointed out of the market.
That's amazing. I love that. I might actually put some savings aside to make that one happen on my front too. Although I did have the honor of a cup of tea in Marilyn's kitchen not that long ago, so that was a highlight for me. So thank you all for joining us. And a reminder, next week is our last week and it is nothing but dessert. So a lot of good things coming your way next week. And I will pass it back to you, Marilyn, if you want to say one last goodbye.
One more thing. So I just want to say that fiber be your friend. And when we eat a lot of fiber, your blood sugar just is a lot happier. So will you. So everybody make sure you're focusing on your fiber, and then you can go for a fart walk. Okay, so many hats, many hats. These are still 20% off just until next week, and then it's gone. I'm not going to do this anymore. And then all the 10% of the money is going to send kids to diabetes camp. This is a great Christmas present, or you can buy my book, or just spend $5,000 and I'll come to your house.
I've just popped the link in the chat again, so we'll leave it up there for a few more minutes. And hope everybody had a great evening. We'll see you next week.
Bye. I had fun.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.